Well, News 15 investigates what some homeowners in our region are describing as being stuck in hell. A Youngsville family has filed a class action lawsuit against D.R. Horton Home Builders and Bell Mechanical. In this lawsuit, they claim their homes were constructed improperly, causing massive mold buildup and water damage. News 15 investigates is digging into why this happened and if these homeowners can get compensation. West and Alicia Dixon bought this brand new home in Youngsville in 2014. Several years later, the problems started to arise.
We started smelling the mold, I guess, about 3 or 4 years after. I kept getting sick with respiratory issues. But we had the house tested. No one found anything. And then friends of ours had mold in their house and asked if someone could come and inspect. And when they came, they told us that we had the 3rd worst house in the neighborhood full of mold.
According to the Dixons, the faulty HVAC design and building envelope does not work here in South Louisiana with the high humidity, which has caused the mold and water damage. News 15 Investigates acquired this audio from a conversation back in 2021 between then D.R. Horton City Manager of Louisiana's West Division, Leslie Gullickson, and a disgruntled D.R. Horton homeowner here in Acadiana. She admits they knew certain building envelopes were not suited for South Louisiana's climate.
The code that was built was designed for drier climates, and we have issues along the Gulf Coast where we're very humid with this, the houses being built too tight, but we're building them to the way the federal government says to build them. The man who actually wrote the code did a seminar and said, with the AC people, he said, "I never intended that to be the rules in the South."
News 15 Investigates is looking into the surge of deadly fentanyl coming into the hub city.
Lafayette Parish on pace to set a record for fentanyl overdose deaths this year. News 15's Jeff Horchak joining us live in studio with part 1 of a 3-part series, Poison, Lafayette's Fentanyl Crisis. Jeff, you learned of this crisis firsthand after speaking with a father who lost his daughter to an overdose.
That's right, Marcel. Losing his daughter to this deadly drug has been one of the hardest things that he and his family has had to go through. Tonight, he's warning parents to talk with their children about the dangers of recreational drug use.
Don't mess around with recreational drugs because those days are over.
Bob Broussard knows all too well the dangers of fentanyl. His daughter, John Therese, was a 20-year-old student at UL when she died in October 2021 from fentanyl poisoning.
News 15's Jeff Horchak joining us live with part 2 of his 3-part investigation, Poison, Lafayette's Fentanyl Crisis. Jeff, the Lafayette coroner gave you some surprising new information.
That's right, Jim. Marcel. The coroner tells me that 2024 could be a record year for fentanyl deaths. Related deaths right here in Lafayette Parish. Plus, News 15's medical editor, Dr. John Lepre, he breaks down exactly what makes street fentanyl so deadly. In all your years in medicine, being a doctor, dealing with in the coroner, have you ever seen a drug as lethal as this?
No.
Hands down.
Hands down. This is it.
We've learned Lafayette Parish is on pace to set a record for fentanyl overdose deaths this year. News 15's Jeff Horchak joins us live in studio with the final part of his 3-part investigation, Poison, Lafayette's Fentanyl Crisis.
Oh, Jim, Marcel, the Lafayette Police Department's Narcotics Division tells me that it's concerning because they've confiscated more and more fentanyl every day off the streets of Lafayette. For years, Lafayette has been a hot spot for drug trafficking, with 2 major interstates in I-10 and I-49 meeting up here in the hub city. The Lieutenant Will White, who heads up the narcotics department with Lafayette Police Department, says every single day they seize fentanyl on the streets.
Whenever the K2 spikes start hitting the market in these local smoke shops and whatnot, and at that point I think we saw a trend of your more traditional drugs are now going to be converted to more synthetic in the future, and I think that's where we're at right now.
We begin tonight with new information. The death of Lafayette Police Senior Corporal Cedric Jolivet. News 15 Investigates has uncovered he was killed by friendly fire.
Jolivet, an 11-year veteran of the force, died in the line of duty during a SWAT standoff 2 weeks ago today when law enforcement descended on a home in Jeanerette where 2 people were held hostage. So how will this news impact the case against the standoff suspect who police say put that deadly day into motion? News 15's Jeff Horchak joining us live in studio with the details. And Jeff, what did we find out?
Well, Jim, Marcel, Corporal Jolivet's death is a community tragedy. The question many across Acadiana are asking tonight is, why did this happen? There are 2 factors emerging so far: friendly fire and a 4-time felon. It was a tragedy in the making. An hours-long standoff with an armed suspect turns into a hostage situation that ends in gunfire.